about that signal chat fallout. Tell us what he said.
Yeah, sure. Some would call this a kiss of death. I would say Pete Hegseth has just one more step before he could potentially get pushed out of office, pushed out of his position. But Donald Trump was asked about Pete Hegseth and the Signalgate controversy. And Donald Trump said, I think he's going to get it together. Now imagine that. Saying that about your defense secretary. I think he's going to get it together. I had a talk with him, a positive talk. But I had a talk with him. My parents used to have talks with me. I didn't always get it together, but I'm sure Pete Hegseth will take that advice very sharply.
I'm sure you always listened to your parents, and you were a very good boy.
I was a good. Yeah, well,
that's
sometimes.
The new CNN polling that is just out is giving us a better idea of what Americans think of Trump's job performance as he closes in this week on 100 days in office. And it's not necessarily good news for the White House. No. Break down the latest numbers for us.
No, Wolf, it really isn't. We'll see Donald Trump out over the next couple of days. We'll see him in Michigan tomorrow night talking about his 100 days. He's supposedly having fun in the White House. He's telling us. But if you look at these numbers right now, they are just dismal right now. He has lost 7 points in just a couple of months, in 60 days. He has now gone underwater, as we show right there. But where is he losing the support from? He's losing it from independents on just about every issue. Let's just look at the issues right here that we have seen his drop. Almost every issue, from 3 points drop in foreign policy to a 9-point drop in inflation. He is not polling well. Donald Trump, if you look at immigration as well right there, at 45%, and that's supposed to be his #1 issue, Wolf.
I want to get your comments very quickly on something that President Trump said to The Atlantic in an interview that just published this morning, kind of his most expansive comments on Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He said, quote, I think he's gonna get it together. I had a talk with him, but I had a talk with him, he said. It's just the phrasing there. I think he's gonna get it together sort of implies that he doesn't yet have it together, or certainly that he hasn't had it together. You, in your old gig, you dealt with a lot of secretaries of defense. Is it the type of job that you want to be learning on the job?
No, of course not. And not only did I deal with secretaries of defense working for them, I was actually the senior military assistant, the 3-star billet in the Secretary of Defense's office for Donald Rumsfeld. So I know that office extremely well. I know the pressures of it. Don Rumsfeld went into that job having already been the Secretary of Defense. And had many, many challenges. It is, in many ways, the hardest job in Washington, and I think it is not a place you want to be kind of learning as you go.
In an interview with The Atlantic magazine, the president was asked about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who, of course, has been involved in a couple controversies now, and the president said he thinks that Hegseth will get it together. Implicit in that is that he doesn't have it together right now. Is that what our nation's fighting men and women deserve right now in a Secretary of Defense?
Pete Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense our fighting men and women deserve, and the one they have wanted. If you look at the recruiting numbers speak for themselves. We've got a strong and focused military. They're focused on why people join the military, which is defending our country. Not some woke ideology, not some empire building excursion all over the world, but focused on America first and foremost. That's what inspires people. I enlisted in the Army after high school. Of course, the Cold War was going on then. It was a long time ago. And then I ultimately got the chance to go to West Point and become an Army officer, serve in Range Regiment, and other great things. I didn't do those things to help build an empire. I did them to defend my country. And when you see Pete Hegseth's leadership focusing our military on those things, people are responding, and they're energized by his focus.
Credit on recruiting potentially could be to President Trump. It's certainly hard to see the difference there. Some of it, of course, was early commitments from last year, but there is no doubt there is an increase in recruitment. But to be clear, is that the only thing to sort of attribute as the main accomplishment of Pete Hegseth at this moment?
No, I think he's done a nice job reorganizing. He's pushed out, the DEI climate agenda. You won't ever see Pete Hegseth say the biggest threat to national security is the climate, because that's not what Department of Defense is supposed to focus on. Regardless of where the climate is, DOD isn't the arsenal of climate change. They're the arsenal of democracy. They're supposed to impose our will if they need to, and because they're strong and focused, that gives Secretary Rubio a much better platform for negotiating. We want the State Department to be able to always keep us at peace. That's clearly been President Trump's focus in his first administration, and he's been very focused on trying to secure peace around the world in his second administration. Pete Hegseth's a vital part of that, and if you look at the Houthis in one of President Trump's interviews where people keep trying to get him to attack Pete Hegseth, he goes, ask the Houthis how he's doing. They're getting smoked. And all they have to do is stop trying to engage in piracy and targeting our ships and others as they just engage in commerce traveling through the Red Sea. So the straits there. So I think Pete Hegseth's doing a nice job. I think his leadership's going to continue to improve as he tackles things like contracting and working with DOD on the Defense Production Act, for example. There are things like that that he will build the right team around him. There's still confirmations we're waiting on. For example, the Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness. Hopefully we'll get that confirmation soon and we can help staff appropriately. This is a big part about what Pete Hegseth brought to the table in confirmation, is I want my personnel focused on fighting and winning wars, not some ideological agenda. And part of that is getting his team confirmed.
Yeah. Climate change is undeniably affecting national security, with the Arctic expected to open up more, and that's obviously a focus of the Defense Department big time, along with a number of other things.
Founding member of Greenland Caucus, it's big.
We'll have to talk about that some other time, and I look forward to it. Congressman Davidson, thank you so much.
Damning with faint praise at the highest level. President Trump with his most loaded comments yet about embattled Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. In an interview just published in The Atlantic, the president said of Hegseth, quote, "I think he's gonna get it together. I had a talk with him, a positive talk, but I had a talk with him." With us now, Maura Gillespie, former advisor to then Speaker of the House John Boehner, and Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha. Chuck, I think he's gonna get it together. One other way of reading that is he hasn't had it together.
That means I'm going to give you a little bit of a leash, and you ain't got far to walk, boy, because you finna get in trouble, because he's about had all he can take of this. You're probably going to talk about some awful polling numbers that he's got coming out in his first 100 days as well, and he don't need this Pete Hegseth thing hanging over him along with all these horrible polling numbers all at the same time, all as we're running into elections coming up in New Jersey and Virginia. He's trying to get this off of his plate and get it focused on things that are positive around him and not these negative things.
More, is this a glass half empty or glass half full? It's like Pete Hegseth, call your office. The president basically says that he doesn't have it together yet, that he's going to get it together? Or is it half full in the sense that he still has a job this morning?
I mean, for Pete Hegseth, he still has a job this morning, but for Donald Trump, he doesn't need this distraction or these, essentially making him look bad, right? He doesn't want his administration, anyone else, to be taking away from what he is trying to show the world and the American people he can do for them. Unfortunately, I think that there are certainly some downsides and some things that people are frustrated by, but certainly the inequities and the really inexperience that Pete Hegseth has shown time and time again, even in the 2-3 months he's been in the job, is pretty egregious.